Welcome back, everyone. Our guest today is Felicia Gonzalez, a reporter with the TV program Tokyo Eye that is broadcast out of Tokyo, Japan on the channel NHK World. Tokyo Eye is a program that showcases the latest trends, hidden attractions, and events in and around Tokyo. It is hosted by a well-known radio personality in Japan, an American named Chris Pepler, and the show has foreign reporters that feature events, fashion trends, and underreported locations across the city. Felicia has a wonderful Twitter feed full of links to her good work, current news in Japan, and other topics. I highly recommend it. Her Twitter address is at FGZZF. So again, that's at F as in Felicia, G as in Gonzalez, double Z, and then another F. Felicia, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you've done a lot of interesting work over the years reporting on stories in Japan. And lately, a lot of your work has appeared on Tokyo Eye, on NHK World Japan. For those of us who don't know, please tell us what NHK World is, as well as something about the show Tokyo Eye.
Okay, so NHK World Japan is the international service of NHK, and NHK stands for Nippon Hoso Kyokai, which is Japan Broadcasting Corporation. And our part here, the international service, we broadcast 24 hours in English and all kinds of programs and news on Japan and Asia. And you can also find us through TV, radio, and online portal as well. And as you were mentioning about Tokyo Eye 2020, we try to go and look around Tokyo, find places that maybe are not so known, but are definitely interesting and a place that you may want to check out yourself. And sometimes some of the locals as well don't even know those places are there. So it's really fun investigating.
Well, I just love watching it. I have a great time watching your show. So Felicia, this past Saturday, there was a magnitude 7.3 quake off the coast of Fukushima, that same area of that disastrous earthquake back in 2011. What did you hear about the affected areas? Have you heard anything in particular about if there was damage or people?
Yes, actually, I could feel it. We registered 4 where I live now, and it was just a little bit after 11 p.m. We're just getting ready for bed, and all of a sudden, we feel this. And it was going on for quite a long time. And what I was really interesting to hear about was this quake that happened is believed to be an aftershock of that 2011 earthquake, right? So, yeah, it seems like these aftershocks can go on for 10 years or sometimes even 20 years after that. So they've been, warning us about that could be coming. So be prepared to expect it. So, and it did happen again. And this time we were fortunate that there was no tsunami, right? And the nuclear was all right. So there was some leakage, but it was all contained and it was all right. I think there was around 100 and some people were injured, but there were no deaths this time. And I believe that was due to just people being really prepared. And as you could see on the news, people, we have our stocks of water, food rations, and things like that, because of course the water's off. But I can say learning lessons from what happened last time. Preparation was much better this time.
Thank God.
Yeah, so.
I had read this week that the Pfizer COVID vaccine arrived in Japan and that frontline workers are getting vaccinated.
Right.
What's the Japanese public's view towards the COVID vaccinations? How open are they to it? And generally speaking, what's the latest with COVID in Japan?
So let's see. Yesterday there was in Japan there was 350 new cases. So all across Japan that would be about 1,300 or so. So it's getting a little bit better than it had been going when the year first opened. But of course, we still have to be vigilant of what's going on. And in terms of getting the vaccination, I would say when the virus was first breaking out, people were a little bit more hesitant about getting the vaccination. But now I think more people are being open to it. But what I hear, there's about a 20 to 30% of the population who are a little bit hesitant. That doesn't mean I don't want to get it, but they just need more information and maybe just to see what's going on first before they will go ahead and do it.
Mhm.
Mm,
So at the start of the pandemic,
mm.
many people were predicting that Japan was going to be one of the hardest hit countries because of its rapidly aging population. But that hasn't been the case.
Yes.
What has Japan been doing to keep infections and deaths at levels lower than that of most countries? And what do you think other countries can learn from Japan's public health measures?
Yeah, so I can say that it's several factors, several things all together going well that contribute to that. And of course, they're investigating what different things seem to be the best methods. And what I can say is you may have heard, I don't know, the 3 Cs. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay, so the government program, the government news and public broadcast, they say, please avoid the 3 Cs, which are closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings. And
Mm,
when if you can imagine each one in a circle, and if they intersect anywhere, these areas are going to be where you know, can really have to worry about trying to, get the virus. And so in Japan, right, they focused on retrospective contact tracing. And when they did that, they found out that these are the 3 places where people are spreading the virus and where they were able to contract the virus. So keeping these separate, right? And of course, mask wearing and public broadcasting announcements and things like that. I would have to say those things plus conformity by the society is very helpful, because we understand if we're wearing a mask, it's not just for us, but it's for other people as well. So everybody just does their part, and everybody is stressed and everybody doesn't like it, but if you want to get over it, it's better to do it all together and try to just go for it and do it together.
mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I can say many of the elderly or older citizens, they will, of course they miss going out and things like that, but for now, we're just going to stay home or just try to stay in our own little neighborhoods, or maybe have our children go out and pick up the groceries or use deliveries and so on. So it can be
mhm.
difficult, yes, but it's better than getting sick. So,
Yes.
mm,
Um, Japan is known for its work culture of company employees being
mm,
expected to put in long hours at the office until late at
mhm,
night.
mhm.
Has COVID forced some Japanese companies to change their in-office requirements for work, or are companies in Japan, are they allowing their companies or their employees now to work from home on an increased basis, or is it
Yes,
more
yes,
difficult?
that's true. Actually, they now use the phrase in English, new normal, right? So they have to say, we have to accept the new normal. So especially when we had the shutdown, they're saying 70% of workers should try to be doing your work at home, right? Because as you know, the trains in Tokyo get very crowded, rush hour in the morning and stuff. So this is a disaster situation, right? You've got the 3 Cs all together. So the big companies, of course, started doing that, and then everybody follows suit. And I guess what I like about Japan is they suggest these things, right? The government gives you suggestions. They're not orders, but they say, we suggest this is the right way. And then one company does it, so the other one does it, and then everyone does it.
Mm,
It's working well that way.
okay. Um, have restaurants and
Mm,
bars
mm.
have they I know that in the US that's been a place of a lot of transmission of COVID.
Yes. Hmm.
What have Japan's restaurant and bars done in terms of putting in place measures
Yeah.
for COVID prevention?
So a lot of things that before, maybe the takeout option, we know we have that in the States, right? When we don't finish eating, we can take stuff home and things like that. That wasn't so common before, but now we have delivery. There's other services I've seen. I was actually interested in doing reporting on this. I've seen some restaurants where the mother's just bringing some ingredients and then they're making the dishes out of those ingredients
Oh, no
and
kidding.
deliver it back. So that one I want to investigate actually a little bit more myself.
Yeah.
And, when you go to the restaurants, the hours are shortened, and
Mhm.
every restaurant is thinking the best way because they're set up a little bit different, but some have the partitions here, or skipped spaced seatings, or they moved it outside, all kinds of ways. It depends on the setting of your restaurant, but they have been hit hard, of course, with it. But, you know, we have to try to support as we can, so.
Now, these restaurants and bars that have been forced to curtail their hours, have they been able to receive any government assistance, to your knowledge?
Yes, yes, yes. So depending on your situation, so they will give you a certain amount per month. Now, this will depend on how big your restaurant is and how many people you have working for you, whether or not that's going to be a good idea or not. So each one will have to consider that for their own situation. But other restaurants that were open at night, like locally here, it was a bar, but he decided to turn his into like a delivery lunchtime during that period. And I used to go down there all the time with my family. It was pretty delicious as well. I didn't know he could cook so well. So some people are doing things like that, or only delivering to like maybe the aged home or something like that. So just trying to find ways to go about things, because where there's a need, you just got to find where's the need and match your service to it. So
Sure. Well, you may have heard that here in the US, many families have been eligible to receive coronavirus relief money from the government,
yes.
and that more is on the way for many people. Are Japanese citizens able to receive direct assistance from the government during this pandemic?
Yes, when it first came out, just like with the States, there was the first stimulus check. So in Japan also you had one, and every citizen got 100,000 yen per person in the household. And that was a one-time thing. And then after that, though, depending on your situation, there are different things that you can apply for the government, help with rent or help with the your salary, right? If you suddenly lost all of your work because your work was forced to shut down due to the virus. So there are different things available. Yeah.
So I've been reading that recent public opinion surveys are showing that up to 40% of Japanese citizens don't want the Olympic Games to be held this summer due to, the obvious health concerns over COVID. And I read a poll about a week ago that said the figure was closer to 80% of Japanese citizens. What are you hearing? And in your view, what's the likelihood that the games will be held this summer?
Well, yes, you've got the same news as you. And when you're out in the public talking to people, it feels like it's about 80%, right? So yeah, I can feel that from just speaking with people. But I will say, when you do go outside, like right down the street, actually, we're supposed to have the yachting event very close to where I live. I mean, it's like a 10-minute walk. And that is still looks, the signs are still up, the signage is going on, and it seems like things are going on. Events are still going, like the qualifying events and these things you can still see on TV, but the public itself is a little bit hesitant, obviously, because they're worried about what's going to happen. But the government, the national government, says they're fully committed to deliver the games, right, safely and securely. I don't know exactly what their plans are, but if they be in a bubble somehow and do it like that, I guess it would be all right, but maybe with no spectators. And I guess having to watch the movements carefully of where's everybody going. So citizens are concerned, right? Because they're doing their part to keep safe. So we want to just keep everybody safe.
Right. In the lead up to Olympic Games, there's often these Olympic torch relays throughout the host country. Have you heard if that Olympic torch relay has already started, or when it will start, or if it will?
Well, this is kind of there's been some problems with that, because they started it and then they stopped it when the virus happened. And then there was an area in Okinawa where they were supposed to run through the Shuri Castle, and that had burned down.
Yeah,
right?
I heard about that.
Yeah. So there are some problems with that. And and then, they're trying to figure out maybe different ways that they can do this. So as of now, I don't have any 100% certainty of what's going on. So I don't really want to say right now, but I know they're thinking, right? So every day the situation's changing, and I can say that whatever you may have plan A, right now until one day before, and it might turn to plan C, right? Because of some extenuating circumstance. So we're going to have to wait and see. Yeah.
So I know I asked you about this past Saturday's earthquake,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen your reporting about disaster preparation in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the ways that Japanese companies and Japanese families prepare for natural disasters, whether it's an earthquake or a flood? I know that it's something that they put a lot of attention and detail into.
Right. If we look at the bigger skyscrapers, these big buildings, so they're made as, I guess we can say, earthquake proof as possible. So there's deep foundations, and they have huge, like massive shock absorbers. So that would dampen, seismic energy. And all of the companies and schools and things, we always have drills, not just for kids, but for adults as well. And sometimes you can have, when you look at the public bulletin boards, you can also participate in public run drills to see how you would fare in that kind of a situation. And the earthquake and tsunami evacuation points, they're very well established. And even just, when you walk down the street and you look at say a telephone pole, you can see it says evacuation, and it has very clear messaging about where you should go. And another thing that probably most houses, I would say, in Japan, and definitely all the businesses have, are the emergency kits, always right by the door, ready to go. And we all probably have in our phone the alert system. Okay. So when the earthquake comes, before that, you're already getting alerted, and it connects you to where you should be evacuating and things like that. So those are all very helpful. And I guess the biggest thing is we all know, we've all experienced this kind of moving, right? So it's not something that might happen sometime. It's in your mind, right? So you're best to be prepared.
Sure. Well, Japan has a lot of knowledge on this, and they can help out other seismically active societies. So international travel is going to begin opening up at some point.
Yes.
And people will begin traveling to Japan again. Felicia, what are 3 locations in Tokyo, or maybe even outside of Tokyo, that you would recommend tourists to visit? Maybe some places that are not typically found in the guidebooks, a little bit off the beaten path, maybe unique.
One that was interesting, it's in Tokyo. It's called Kawagoe. I don't know if you're familiar with Kawagoe, right?
I've heard of
Kawagoe. Okay. When you go there, you're gonna be you're just gonna feel like you just transplanted yourself back to Edo, right? The Edo period. So you're gonna see some traditional sweet shops, rice shops, wineries, merchant houses, warehouses, and things like that. So there's also a Buddhist temple. It's really nice when you walk down those streets. Actually, it looks like a movie set kind of when you walk down there. So it's really interesting. A great place especially in the summer. It's really nice. A lot of the summer feeling, you can also rent yukata and wear that to go out. So I recommend there. That's a little nice trip if you feel like something, nostalgic kind of thing.
Sure.
That's for that. Yeah. So I would recommend there. Let's see, another kind of off the beaten path kind of place is everybody goes there. There's so many different places to go. I guess it depends on what you like, right? So Are you a hobbyist? Are you like, I guess, what exactly is it that you're looking out for, right? Okay, how about this? If you tell me what other ideas might you have? So one is like traditional.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want to see some, religious sites, maybe, a temple, a Shinto shrine, maybe.
Well, yeah. There are so many to go, and of course the big one is Asakusa, which is always going to be crowded. But I guess no matter how many times I go there, it's another one that you should definitely see because it's got the here when you go, right, I think you may be familiar when you watch movies. When you see Asakusa, it has that big sign right there, and you go
Yeah.
inside, and it's a huge ground, very spacious, great place to walk around. And actually, what I would recommend there is you have Asakusa, the main temple place, and then you keep walking, you go off to the left, and you keep walking, you can run into Kappadori. Have you been there?
I
This
have, yes,
Okay,
but
yeah. So you can
I'm
find
just
all sorts of,
yeah,
kitchenware, swords as well. These kinds of
excellent.
things are great. A little bit farther down, there's a lot of temples. My favorite is this little cat shrine dedicated to love.
Ah,
That's a place that I like. Yeah. That one, I remember going there, and there's a long line of people, some singles, right? Just saying, yeah,
okay,
thank you for
yeah,
my love. Yeah, so I recommend that as well. And I guess the next place I would recommend is not, if you're staying in Tokyo, I would just try to hop on the train and come on out towards
oh,
Enoshima or Kamakura. These are also very nice day trips if you want to see a bit of the ocean, get some
great.
fresh air. Yeah, I would recommend those as well.
Would you recommend that tourists visit one of the fish markets?
Yeah, so I have not yet been to the new one because of the virus,
Okay,
but yeah, but for the show, and this is interesting that you did bring that up because they changed it up a bit how they're doing. So you can now actually order fish from the fish market and have it delivered to your home. So I did that.
oh,
Excellent sushi, which
that
is
sounds
it's
great.
going to be fish that you cannot normally order. They only usually let restaurants order this, right?
Mm,
So we're pretty lucky with that. So yeah, for now, that's how that's going. But if you can get a chance, I would definitely go visit. Um,
okay,
yeah, right now we're just gonna have it ordered at home, but
sure,
yeah.
yeah, okay. So I've always wanted to ask fellow foreigners this question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Japan's cities are dotted with convenience stores, the
Mm-hmm.
konbini,
Yes,
and what we understand to be 7-Eleven stores here in the
right.
U.S. But
Mm-hmm.
for those in our audience who are unfamiliar, Japan's convenience stores are in another galaxy. They're so wonderful. They have everything.
Yeah.
Felicia, do you have a favorite convenience store chain?
Well, that's interesting. Japanese can really get into which is your favorite convenience, right? So some people really like mini stop because they've got these meals that you can order, which are pretty good, and ice cream pretty good. Mini stop I like. I can also say I like. It's difficult. I guess I do like 7-Eleven. Recently they've expanded their foods, right? And their frozen foods, which you can easily just pop in the microwave and then you've got your whole dinner. This is really
Okay,
was good for me when I was reporting and on the go. So
yeah,
fresh.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this wonderful show that you work on with Chris Pepler, Tokyo Eye 2020. What's the most favorite segment you've produced for that?
There are so many because I'm always having so much fun while I'm
Yeah,
doing it. But I would say recently, it was the one featuring fireworks during the pandemic.
yeah,
That one I really had a good time with. Yeah.
yeah. That tugged at the heartstrings to see
Yeah.
just how much that lifted the spirits of
Mm.
the locals who were lucky enough to see them. That was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because every year fireworks are kind of a big thing in Japan, right? So every summer people are looking forward to it. It has a sense of kind of like a sentimental feeling to it. So
Right.
not being able to see them and then we experienced them in the studio. That was a lot of fun.
Now, would you recommend to tourists visiting Tokyo in the future during the summer if their
Yes.
trip timing, coincides with the fireworks show? Would you recommend them going?
I definitely recommend it.
Okay.
Right? It's a little bit different than the States because you're going to see a lot of people in summer dress, the yukata, men and women. And you can also do so if you'd like to do, right? So that's a
Hmm.
place you can finally wear one if you've bought one. The street stalls have a lot of delicious foods you can try. Some like takoyaki, maybe you've never tried before if you're coming from
Hmm.
a. So I definitely recommend that.
Okay. How did you come to decide to move to Japan?
Well, I suddenly decided the first time I came, I was 19, and on a whim, I just decided to go. And the next week, I bought a one-way ticket and a phrase book, and I left. My mom was not very happy with it, but my dad was like, "Go ahead," and I went. So
Wow.
around, I made some contacts in Tokyo. I didn't even know how to take a train, but I learned how to do it right from the airport. And yeah, I just made my way, and then I went back. I finished college, and then I came back again. So
Okay.
yeah, it was a good experience.
And where do you call home originally?
Cleveland, near Cleveland, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. I believe that Cleveland, as well as much of the country as we speak right now, is under several inches, maybe even feet of snow.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Not missing that.
right.
Yeah, I don't want to do the shoveling anymore. So yeah.
Now, how did you become involved with TV reporting?
Let's see, how did that go? Well, originally I was doing artist management. So I had some musicians, we were doing gigs, some of them came from abroad. And when I'm doing this, of course, you're promoting them as well. So I would make videos and things like that about the gig, when the show was going on, and then turn them into videos and so on. And I noticed that actually I really liked interviewing my artists and talking to people and finding things out. And doing that, I ended up meeting a man from France, and he was like a videographer. So then we started going around together Tokyo, finding artists and events and doing things like that. And from that's how it all started.
Okay. And for those of us who've never worked in television, what do you find to be the most difficult aspects to working in TV?
Mm-hmm. Um, that might vary depending on the country that you're working with, right? So in Japan, we have to be very careful. We have to have a consensus of everyone, right? So you might find some things take a little bit longer, or final decisions have to have certain order of getting approved. And some people might find that frustrating, but if you take your mindset out of what you're used to and try to go into what is new, it's a little bit easier to understand. I don't have a problem with it because that is the way it's done, right? So, and I didn't see anything going wrong with it. It's going quite well. So,
And what have been some of the biggest life lessons you've learned from living in Japan?
yeah, I guess I would have to say the biggest thing is when a foreigner comes into Japan, right? Or Japanese thinking on the outside. So it's, I guess the biggest thing I would say is have an open mind, right? So always look at things not from just your own viewpoint and what you have learned in the past, because when you enter somebody else's home or somebody else's place, they're also doing the same thing. So if both of you just kind of keep in your own separate boxes, it's not going to work out very well. We have to just be open-minded and accepting of what is going on, because of course that's what we expect other people to do for us, so we should also do it for them.
You speak excellent Japanese. How did you learn the language? And do you have any tips for people who are considering to study Japanese, or maybe
Mm,
folks who just want to improve their Japanese?
yes. Well, that would be immersion. And that's difficult to do unless you come to the other country. Now, when I came, I did not even know konnichiwa, right? I didn't even know hello.
Is that right?
And I learned it the first day I came. So, what I would say is, I didn't go to Japanese language school and things like that. The only thing I had was a dictionary. I had a dictionary in Romaji because I couldn't read the kanji, of course. And just by talking, watching television, and just living in Japan, that's how I learned. That's actually how I learned Japanese. And the tip that I would have is that is important. Many people are afraid of making mistakes, but it is through those mistakes actually that you'll probably remember the most,
Mm.
because it's a stronger impact on you, right? So if I just make a mistake on a test, I don't think I'm going to remember that. But if I have an actual situation and I made a mistake, I'm going to remember. So
Yeah.
I'd say you've got to speak to people, speak, and just keep speaking.
Okay. So you have a unique insight into the country as a foreigner living in
Hmm.
Japan. In your view, what are some of the biggest ways in which Japan is misunderstood? What are some of the common ways in which the outside world gets wrong about Japan?
Gets wrong. Maybe when they see Japan, they think everything is the same. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's just a copy of everybody else. Everything is very ordered and everything is the same. But I think that's a difference within Japan, because in the West, we're used to big things, big event, big movements. But in Japan, we look at the very small things, the delicate things. So within that person, there's something very different, right? But it's very subtle, right? So the subtlety, in that subtlety, there's quite a large depth of things to discover. And that, I think, a lot of people kind of miss. They don't really get that point. So even the flavors of food, maybe at first, they're not quite used to subtle taste. They want some impact, something strong like this. But that appreciation of knowing that, it opens quite a new world. Oh, my cat. Sorry about that. Okay. He just bit. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, rascal. Okay, sorry. Okay.
your cat is always welcome to Zoom bomb us. That's just fine.
Are you gonna do it? I'll introduce you, but he's like in a bad mood. Come, Rascal. Come, baby. Gonna be happy, mommy. Here's Rascal.
Oh, rascal. He's a big
Rascal,
guy.
the rascal who just bit my leg.
He wants attention.
He's a 6-pound boy, so big. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. So, can you recommend any books or podcasts or maybe a YouTube channel that you think is helpful for helping foreigners to learn about Japan?
One person that I've seen recently is Nobita. I think he's Nobita from Japan.
Okay.
He has quite a good insight because he is a typical Japanese person, right? He talks about all kinds of things in Japan. So it could be like trends, it could be news, it could be feelings, it could be anything. But he's got a really great insight because he is Japanese and the audience is generally foreign. And so they ask him many kinds of things and his research is well done. I really like his style, so I recommend him. And it's bilingual, so he speaks in English, but when it's Japanese, you can turn on subtitles. So.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Can you share with us about any new projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I was working on some, but when the virus came, we kind of put that on hold for now. So I'm going to have to wait a little bit more until we get back. But again, some music things will be coming up. But we're going to wait a little bit before we start going back into that.
So you've assembled a very impressive collection of work. Do you have any plans for perhaps writing a book, providing your perspective about your time in Japan?
I actually have a draft of, I have a script and I also have a book, but it wasn't exactly, what can I say? My perspective, it's not like it's not a travel book where I would say, this is the best place, this is the second best place, nothing like that, but it's more of like an experience of what I experienced in Japan kind of a thing. So like that.
Great. Well, hopefully you'll send out a tweet and let us know when it's ready.
Yeah.
So I saved the most important questions for last. What's your favorite Japanese food? What is something that you've come to really like since you've been in Japan and that you now crave?
I guess I'm a dessert person, a sweets person. So I like wagashi. Wagashi. Yeah, so when you have Japanese tea, sometimes you see a very ornate, beautiful little cake next to it. Have you seen it before, maybe?
Yeah, okay, that's wagashi. Huh?
Yeah, so usually it can be made of mochi, right? It can have bean paste inside, or it can have fruit jelly or something like this. But what I love about wagashi is the seasons, and they're so beautiful. They're just beautifully presented, and each season you have a new one. So I love it. The beauty of it, the taste of it, it's really Japanese, and I recommend if you get a chance to try some.
I will. Thank you for that. So when Americans start traveling to Tokyo again, they'll probably be in Tokyo, a few days, maybe a week.
Right.
If you're from the Southwest like I am, it's part of your constitution. You need to have Mexican food at least once or twice a week. I've been going to Japan for, well, more years than I care to admit. For work, for study, I've never
Right.
been able to find a satisfactory Mexican restaurant in Tokyo. Do you have any idea where a guy like me can go to find decent Mexican food in Tokyo?
Have you been to Junkadelic in Meguro?
No.
I recommend, surprisingly, the name is Junkadelic. So maybe you wouldn't feel that that was a Mexican food place, but it is. And it's fairly reasonable. And I think a lot of, maybe you've experienced like a dulled down taste, right, in other shops.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
not that. So I would recommend it.
Junkadelic in Meguro.
Yes, Meguro. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Felicia, I know you're very busy. I appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. It's a pleasure
Thank you.
meeting you
Yeah, I
after
really
all
had a
these
great
years of
time.
seeing
Thank
you
you.
on
Thank
TV.
you.
And much continued success to you. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Lucas, is she asleep? You want to show this? I'll introduce you to my daughter.
Please.
Is right here. But oh, Lily's grouchy. This is Lilia.
Oh, Lilia. Oh,
Yeah, it's
so
nap
beautiful.
Time. Oh,
Okay.
thank you. And this is Lucas, my husband.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you.
Oh, he said
Oh,
nice to
pleasure.
you.
Okay, you couldn't hear because I just realized.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.